computer. It tells you that now. Now you know. Okay, I will be muting everyone and I will unmute people as their turn comes in. So I'm doing that now. Alrighty. Welcome everyone. Welcome Facebook if you found it on Facebook. Welcome to Future Watchers on YouTube. We are here to celebrate the release of Fata Morgana by Joel Chace. We have 4 incredible poets who will be reading for us today. So yeah, let's start. We're going to start with Eileen R. Tabios. Eileen loves books and has released over 60 collections of poetry, fiction, essays, and experimental biographies from publishers in 10 countries in cyberspace. Publications include the long-form novel Dove Lion, A Fairy Tale for Our Times, the form-based selected poems, The Intervention of the Haiku, selected tercets, The Great American Novel, selected visual poetry, Invent Story, selected catalog poems and new, and The Thorn Rosary, selected prose poems and new. The first book-length Haibun collection, 127 Million Orphans, a collection of 7-chapter novels, Silk Egg, an experimental autobiography against misanthropy, as well as 2 bilingual and 1 trilingual editions involving English, Spanish, and Romanian. Her award-winning body of works includes The Invention of the Haiku Poetic Form. Eileen, would you read for us today?
Thank you. I wish I'd known you were going to read that long bio. I would have told you just start, just call me Eileen. But thank you, everyone, and congratulations to Joel Chace. You know, I've been in company with Joel for years now as a poet. We often appear in the same literary venues, and I just remembered literally 1 minute ago that I actually once upon a time published Joel Chace, but in a tiny book this size. So I'm glad that Unlikely Books is giving him a normative sized poetry book, Fata Morgana. And from Fata Morgana, I remember reading and was struck by this excerpt where Joel wrote, on the yellow shore where green birds step and breezes bring tears, in any restaurant where whisperings are a red wind, in traffic loops, radio static. The complex spectrum with rising and falling tones is very similar to Earth's auroral emissions. A blue circulation. I listen like hell to get good again. And listening like hell to get good again, that resonates with me. For today, for me, I'll be sharing a poem that resulted from going back to old work and reading them as if I wasn't the one who had created them. And so my poem actually resulted from listening like hell to old work to determine which words today are worth amplifying. This poem is also presented as Appendix 1 in my just released novel, Davi Leon, which is to say that I had to write 300 pages to get to creating this particular poem. Davi Leon is a fictional country in my novel, and the title of my poem is The Return of Davi Leon. I forgot there is a country somewhere on the opposite of where I stand on this earth, a country whose scents stubbornly perfume my dreams. I forgot mud in monsoon season always sucked at the ankles, non-discriminating, a placid surface but camouflaging sharply edged stones, gooey and brown as the hide on rotten bananas. I forgot appreciating a delicadeza moonlight as much as any long-haired maiden. I forgot elders who always grinned at me, unashamed their guns held no teeth. I forgot the light burned and we never shaded our eyes. I forgot discovering the limited utility of calm seas. I forgot children learning to trick hunger with cups of weak tea. I forgot fevers refusing to abate even when drenched with salty waves. I forgot narrowing the focus always reveals something else. I forgot lowering the flag of a country I despised. I forgot lowering the flag of a country I loved. I forgot the stands of cliffs meeting water. I forgot I began drowning in air. I forgot you were the altar that made me stay. I forgot night is unanimous. I forgot how an erasure captures the threshold of consciousness. I forgot how one begins marking time from a lover's utterance of the word farewell. I forgot learning to appreciate rust and how it taught me bats operate through radar. I forgot admiring women who refused to paint their lips. I forgot dust motes trapped in a tango after the sun lashed out a ray. I forgot the colors of a scream, the regret of crimson, the futility of pink, the astonishment of brown. I forgot your favorite color was water. I forgot admiring Picasso's Sleeping Nude, 1907, for its lack of sentimentality. I forgot aching for fiction that would not chasten my days. I forgot becoming my own sculpture when I crawled on a floor to see color from different angles. I forgot astonishment over a block of gray metal swallowing light. I forgot feeling you in the air against my cheek. I forgot your body against mine introduced the limits of light's expanse. I forgot longing for a sky without horizon, but acceding instead to the eye's clamor against the opposite of claustrophobia. I forgot addiction to duende for its intimacy with savagery. I forgot greeting mornings as an exposed nerve. I forgot the capacity to feel you and the breeze lifting my hair from their shyness. I forgot you wanted to see her seeing herself. I forgot you thought of me as you paced the streets of a city whose sidewalks memorized the music of my footsteps dancing away from youth into courage. I forgot you also loved New York City for hosting those whose hair whitened prematurely in order to write books with titles encompassing purity, smoke, thrall, shield, brush, moat, sheen, which is to say the encyclopedia of the I forgot you saw each virgin moon as a ruby you wanted for adorning my body. I forgot the empty chair that awaited us. Its expanse, the totality of an alien world still unexplored. I forgot a fabric named solace and its availability in celery, parchment, black pearl, creme brulee, persimmon, and sage. I forgot linens called la morda or serge antique that offered themselves not as black or white, but as toast and oyster. I forgot waking from a dream of white heat to see sun-washed walls forming a room where silk and lace sculpted a milk puddle on terracotta floors. I forgot suckling wine from your lips, then biting, then swallowing earth, leather, currants, gravel, tobacco, oak, and plums to release the same voluptuous tears familiar to Elizabeth Barrett and Robert Browning, who loved through 573 letters before bearing a son they nicknamed with much affection, Pen. I forgot how beauty dislocates. I forgot tea with a sculptor absent-mindedly rearranging objects on a table to alter their relationships in and with space. I forgot you falling asleep in my skin to dream. I forgot you dreaming I saw myself seeing myself. Objectively, I saw the flowers of my forgotten birthland, Damas de Noche, named after a long-haired woman afflicted into paleness by the verb of feeling. I forgot memory contains an underbrush. I forgot the inevitability of ashes. I forgot a water lily forms instantaneously. I forgot laughter is not comprised of stars. I forgot sentences like veins. I forgot the introduction as a permanent state. I forgot how the mountains of bones shared the pallor of thick white candles burning in tin candelabras. I forgot no metaphors exist for genocide. I forgot radiance must penetrate if it is to caress, and its price can never reach blasphemy. I forgot the sun hid from what I willingly bartered for lucidity. I forgot you holding me up against a steel door radiated by a generous halogen. I forgot how one can sag into night as if night was a lover. I forgot the rice fields, sometimes melancholy at dusk, sometimes a rippling mirror of a sunset's maidenly blush. I forgot never craving kindness. I forgot that sometimes the world should be veiled. I forgot part of mortality's significance is that wars end, only to continue again. I forgot the taste of your mouth was song of licorice. I forgot releasing breath to describe milk transformed by your scent. I forgot the salt of expired matchsticks. I forgot unfamiliarity with the edges of my body. I forgot place become person. I forgot you reminding, honey, angels may fall, but they never die. I forgot to be an angel is to be alone in a smudged gown, fingers poking through holes burnt by epistemology. I forgot drinking from wafer-thin crystal, whose cracked rim snagged lips into a bleeding burning. I forgot my skin was ruin. I forgot the pleasurable tension of avidity. I forgot reading lips through a mirror. I forgot the seams caused by bindings. I forgot capturing light through algebra. I forgot moonlight revealing itself as broken. I forgot regret is a kingdom with unknown borders. I forgot a breakfast of rain. I forgot rain arriving aslant like premature memory. I forgot you losing all alleluias. I forgot freezing light into words by spreading lavender ink across thick cream paper. I forgot the stench of spilled wine. I forgot eyes widening to pull in more of the world. I forgot how exile can salvage. I forgot the logic of amnesia. I forgot what was never called by a name. I forgot the jagged edges of music, still searching for archetype. I forgot a body drowning in light as a hand wrote. I forgot eyes leaking flames. I forgot a yellowed photograph slipping from brittle pages. I forgot artists rise from or fall into desecrated battlegrounds. I forgot looking at glass and not seeing its transparency. I forgot anthologies of glass. I forgot the color of your eyes, which are gray. I forgot the Sphinx unasked riddle. Which is more powerful? A moon so bright it erases night, or a sun so bright it darkens vision? I forgot because I thought it best to forget everything rather than remember schemes informed by my desire rather than what actually transpired. But I will never forget we walk on the same planet and breathe from the same atmosphere. I will never forget the same sun shines on us both. I created my own legacy. No one is a stranger to me. I forgot the anguish of knowledge. I forgot love stutters over a lifetime. I forgot poetry is going to change the world. I forgot my words are healing. I remember my words as holy. I remember my words are going to lift you, all of you, towards joy. Thanks for listening and congratulations, Joel, again.
Eileen, thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, should we move straight to the next author? Let's hear from Norman Fischer. Norman Fischer is a poet, author, and Zen Buddhist teacher and priest. A graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop, he has been publishing poetry since 1979. Now, this bio says he is the author of 17 books of poetry, but we think it might be 20 or possibly some other number. We don't know anymore. 6 books of prose on Zen and religion, as well as numerous articles and essays. His most recent publication, Experience, Thinking, Writing, Language, and Religion, is a long-awaited collection of his essays about experimental writing as spiritual practice. But Norman, that's not the latest now, is it? I just hit unmute.
Yeah, no, that's actually a while ago. There's recently a book called Nature from Tumba Press, and then another one I'll read from tonight called There Was a Clattering As from Lavender Ink in your town, New Orleans. And then I just came out with a Buddhist title from Shambhala Press called When You Greet Me, I Bow. Notes and Reflections from a Life in Zen, which is a collection of my Buddhist essays. The book that you mentioned just a moment ago is a collection of essays about writing, and these are essays about Buddhism. So anyway, thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here and happy to be with my other three readers. And I was a little bit mesmerized by Eileen's reading. That was absolutely terrific. Really,
Oh,
really
thank you, Norman.
wonderful. Yeah, and I'm eager to hear, of course, from Orchid and especially Joel because of this new book just coming out. And you know, it's funny because I met Joel in the pages of Golden Handcuffs Review, where he, I think it's the last issue that came out, had work in it by both him and me, and so that's where we met. And I selected a piece to read from Joel's work from Golden Handcuffs Review, and it's exactly the piece that Eileen read.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's very funny that we both. So, but I'm going to read it anyway because I want to go on. I'll just repeat the little piece that Eileen read, and then I'll go on from there. And it's a poem called After Reading Jack Spicer, a long poem, and so it also appears in Fata Morgana. So. Eileen didn't say this, but I'll point out, and Joel will explain because I cannot explain, that the poem appears to be like a discussion between two poems. A left-hand margin poem, and then there's a poem on the right-hand margin in italics, and the poem goes back and forth between the right and the left-hand sides of the page. So maybe Joel can explain how that works and where that comes from. But I'm going to read about a page and a half from this because it's really lovely, and Eileen already read the beginning. On the yellow shore where green birds step and breezes bring tears, in any restaurant where whisperings are a red wind, in traffic loops, radio station, the complex spectrum with rising and falling tones is very similar to Earth's auroral emissions. A blue circulation. I listen like hell to get good again. This glow, an electron moving in a medium does radiate light even if it is moving uniformly, provided that its velocity is greater than the velocity of light in the medium from the red planet. A radio plays in a furnished, latched room. Listen if you don't like hell. I think that you'll never enter Bohemia, but for poetry to see the windows and maybe blast a few yourself through the rocks of hell, I'll be there waiting for you, my arms open. Move somewhere, nowhere. Just take a weapon along. When any center, a box and whisker plot provides a visual way of understanding both the range and the middle. Scatters. Colors switch, red with yellow, blue with green. Latches begin to click. Newspaper, ink rewinds. Comforters flutter. X. When, while becomes infinite, while y is less than 10, x equals x plus 1, end, no, end. to a new job, forgotten. Others head to the shore by all necessary means. That restaurant gives as good as it takes. Across the highway, a farmer walks among his cows. He's proud they're skinny, not stuffed. In truth, he sees their gauntness, white snow and leafless trees, and a winding track, but close to the sledge were 3 dark, wasted animals. As a weapon, once he latches his barn doors, the beasts inside start a green glow for the delicate task of applying the paint to the tiny dials. The women were instructed to point the brushes with their lips. They became known as radium girls, basking in it. Yonder, the diners smile. Loop-de-loop, lie-de-lie, months later, still no knowledge. Language is a knowing, an event. As words are important to hold on to, whatever it is that composes us. Nor nowhere, nor all the blue books in the world. Getting good means finding that island, squatting near the green sea, deciphering octopus, 3 hearts, and blue blood, ink. Loop-de-loop, lie-de-lie, a comfort, slip of the tongue. So that's great stuff, right? I like that. It's really wonderful. That's why somehow or other, out of reading this work by Joel in Golden Handcuffs, we came to connect with one another. We still, like so many other people that you meet nowadays, you don't see them except on the computer, and so perhaps one day we can meet in person. So here's this. This book came out at the end of April. It's my pandemic poem. There's a lot of pandemic. There's a whole literature, right? We could now have a big literature of 2020, 2021 pandemic poems. And this one is a long, continuous poem called "There Was a Clattering As," which has lots of quotations, mostly bent and twisted, that quotations I've gotten from here and there that I altered, but also not entirely that, of course. And it's all about thinking about all the different angles on pandemics throughout history, and sort of in the soul and in the heart and in the mind and in the in the bloodstream and everything. So I'm going to read a section of this. Neither alive nor dead, inert on its own till cell appear, with living activity to latch onto, then commandeer using chemical mechanisms of living to reproduce mightily. There may be mistakes, some cast off, but there are many of them, many of them, many of them, and still more. Repeating pullulation, its madness of the king who yet knows the truth. In human heart, the greed, the fear, the horror, arrogance, blindness, swagger, the nonsense, and rages on in defense of self and realm. Repeating pullulation, some cast off, but so very many pullulating, repeating array against them, massive forces causing great consternation among the ranks of monastics in cells who come daily together in harmonious prayer to pray for them as they fall, so many crossing London Bridge at twilight under cloudy skies, moon obscured, their bodies piled high in streets. The government secretly digs mass graves, but it is counterproductive, for the dead do not die, they continue repeating to pullulate by other means, other lives, the mutations unsuccessful. If it kills its host, it must do only enough damage to go on repeating, to preserve such particularity of life. Any years are early years, and all years are occasions for recalling and falling into gaps, nothing in gaps. This is the way to write an address. When they were engaged, she said, "We are happy." When they were married, she said, "We are happy." Pregnant, "We are happy." Giving birth, "We are happy." They talked about everything. This is not what was said. They did not talk about disinterested obligation. They did not talk about pleasantness and circumstances. I do not mean to say there was conversation. I do not organize a revision. I declare that there was no need of criticism, that there was no criticism, that there was no breathing. There was breathing. And the nearness of trees and human subservience in face of unheard calling step up to moral philosophy as a way of life, a way to eat distributed food on a daily basis, eating and sleeping, necessary activities, breathing, walking, speaking, like a bow crossing strings, flower melodies especially sweet in early, quiet spring. The many and the few, the greater and the lesser, the good, the bad, the guilty and the just, wander together in crimson weather, awaiting tigers. How much is too much in escalating numbers? What's the highest conceivable number? Old people die anyhow, young people reckon. Citizens wave like flags in their houses. Pictures of people repeating on screens. Grateful phrases appear as memes for people who need people. Such people are the luckiest people. And people who don't need people are hardly people, or so the song says. Tiny virus has no need of others. Each one blind to itself, therefore to other. Each RNA packet in harmony with traffic patterns at edge of substance fiction. It repeats itself in throngs, plays a melody, ranges up and down. The virus took the land from under us, open like an umbrella enclosing us within, sheltering in place, alone and together. Inside we waited, while outside rain and blue skies alternated. We did not know when to die and when to insist on our need. Virus took the chairs and tables, the doors, the woodwork. We walked gingerly about, staying clear as virus paused, then rushed again, up the scale of dismal notes, then smiled, then frowned, then rushed again, looking up and down. Virus welled us to dizziness, neither laughed nor cried, brought us to sighs, and we died against our judgments. It hurt a while, but left a certain quiet in our eyes. Their gorgeousness, not in question, in churlish world now stopped. All that flutters is not paper, all that burns and blazes in this blistering heat. Time is past and present. Whatever future you behold is stuck like flypaper upon a butterfly's cheery wing. They are paper blue in the nightlight. They are handkerchief white in the daylight. They are yellow with some black to heat up for daytime flying. They do not fly at night. They do not fly at night. At night they dream of botched ceremonies in which key elements have been left out negligently by mere mistake of forgetfulness, which is explained to them. They are okay with this, or so we confidently believe, and beyond them a road stretches on into distance covered with snow. Lovely, clear, white, and chill snow. snow of yesteryear, snows of youth in previous time frame, attuned with glow. When did you eliminate the elements that painted the pictures we praised by the skin of their teeth? White clouds cross sky. The cool dirt. They make shadows on ground beneath. Somewhere in all this musing, I noticed a fat little snowflake drift across my field of vision and settle against one of the clods of earth and dissolve. There were others, now that I noticed, gently floating through the cooling night air. Scientists say there is a noise snowflakes make when they land on water, like the wail of a coyote. The sound reaches a climax, then fades away, all in about 1/10,000th of a second. They noticed this when they were using sonar to track migrating salmon in Alaska. The snowflakes made so much noise it masked the signals of the fish, and the experiment had to be abandoned. The flakes float on the water and there is little sound below. But as soon as a flake starts to melt, water is sucked up by the capillary action. Air bubbles are released from the snowflakes or trapped by the rising water. Each bubble vibrates as it struggles to reach equilibrium with its surroundings and sends out sound waves, a cry so small and so high it's undetectable by the human ear. Birds gather at feeder. Sparrows, juncos, pine, siskins crowding one another out, amiably flutter and dart off to myrtle or rosebush, wait and quick return, this writ by them, in authorial confidence as pattern of their scripted moving. In cloudy day, any creature looks up at sky white. There are branches crisscrossed upon its blue. There are feet, 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 feet. Birds' feet and fox paw at night never knew how to keep the trees that mingle in deliberate stillness. Oh, the birds. As in Canterbury's Pilgrims or Orientals crossing the Red Sea toward Mecca, all sorts of humanity. Men of business, men of pleasure, parlor men, backwoodsmen, farm hunters, fame hunters, heiress hunters, gold hunters, buffalo hunters, bee hunters, happiness hunters, truth hunters, and hunters of hunters. Ladies in slippers and moccasin squaws, northern speculators and eastern philosophers, Buddhist saints and Buddhist fakers, Buddhists and atheist Buddhists and scientific Buddhist, Jewish, Christians, English, Irish, German, Scots, Danes, Santa Fe traders in striped blankets, Broadway bucks and cravats of gold, Upper West Side Brooklyn Jews in sweats and payas, Kentucky boatmen, Japanese-looking Mississippi cotton planters, Quakers in full drab, African princes and queens in startling regalia, and dark, fugitive slaves in shadows, hid fearful in their dignity and moral fervor to be free. U.S. soldiers in their regimentals, more slaves, black, mulatto, quadroon, Spanish Creoles and Spanish Jews and French Jews, Mormons and papists, jesters and mourners, teetotalers and convivialists, deacons, blacklegs and know-nothings, hard-shell Baptists, arrogant Negro freemen, Sioux chiefs, solemn as high priests, a piebald parliament, Congress of all kinds, the pilgrim species, human, as pine, beech, birch, ash, hatchmatack, hemlock, spruce, basswood, maple, interweave their foliage and roots in a natural wood. So these human diverse in visage and garb, in pagan abandon, cultivating the decorative, presence in all that flowed helter-skelter downstream in one cosmopolitan and confident tide. And the barber set out his pole and posted his sign, "No trust." Thank you so much for listening. Really wonderful to read for you. Thank you.
Norman, thank you.
Yeah, and
Wonderful to have you here.
yeah, and thanks to Joel, especially for inviting me, and congratulations. I'll add my congratulations to for the new book. And I think that Jonathan, I'm one of the people who are going to get one of those copies. Is that right? Because I don't
Absolutely.
think yeah, right.
Well,
Okay.
you don't have it yet. It's
Oh,
still,
do I have a copy and I don't know where it is? But no, I don't have a copy, right?
I'm sorry, it's still sitting on my desk. I meant to get them out Saturday, and
I have I'll be happy when I get it, but I just didn't want to have it and then lost it, right? But that's not the case.
nope, it is not there yet.
Oh, I'm very happy. I'm very happy. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Norman. All right, let's hear from Orchid Tierney. Orchid is a poet and scholar from New Zealand, now residing in Gambier, Ohio. Her chapbooks include Brachiation, The World in Small Parts, Gallopy Diaries, and the full-length sound translation of Marguerite Kemp, Earsay. First collection, A Year of Misreading the Wildcats, is out from the Operating System. She received an MCW from the University of Auckland, an MA from the University of Otago, and a PhD in English from the University of Pennsylvania. She is assistant professor of English at Kenyon College. Orchid, let me find unmute you real quick. There we go.
Unmute. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to read with such wonderful readers. I'm delighted to see your cat popped up, Elaine. That was this is my life too. Is just cats popping up whenever I'm on. As soon as I give my attention to the screen, you know. Just first of all, Elaine, I really appreciate the anaphora and the rhythm of your reading. It just really wonderfully built up this wonderful sort of poetic crescendo that was just really wonderfully eerie and liminal, I guess, in the spaces where the prose was being produced. And Norman, I really appreciate the archival thrust of your work, the really dense thinking. And I was sort of thinking as you were reading just how much breath, how much focus on the breath you invest in your work. And I'm very interested in sort of breathing at the moment, and it was really delightful to sort of see you that in action. And of course, Joel, I'm just so delighted to be here. I actually want to read my blurb that I produced, assuming that assuming that it hasn't been edited down. But I wanted to just read it and then just read one of just a short section of your poems in fata morgana, because it really sort of blew my mind when I read this particular poem. But the blurb that I wrote was, "These poems are thoughtful phantoms, castles in the air that meditate on the nature of reality, language, architecture, mythology, and philosophy." Joel Chace blends the voices of Ives, Jean Bonifoy, John Ashbery, and many others with Chinese mythology, Georgian folklore, news media, reportage, encyclopedic knowledge to spin a tapestry of variable language that seeks to apprehend the world as it is. Throughout, the poet reveals the joyful persistence of historical thought that reflects its mirage-like presence in poetry. His beautiful lines evoke insistent spectres of expression. Somehow, and I'm quoting here, "Somehow language is here, even in the street, especially. Rich and concise, fata morgana is pleasurably provocative." You know, the dense thinking again with language is something that I really appreciate in this collection. And there's this wonderful poem that's called Seeds in the collection. I'll just read one of the pages, and I just love the way that the sentence structure is the sentences are formed, but also the way that the line breaks are functioning as a way to generate a kind of environment of the poem. And I'm not going to be able to read this eloquently, Joel, so please forgive me. But the poem reads, You'll probably want to see this, the archive of every unsaid sentence. In night's icy font, seed hoe with tattered diploma nailed to its handle, daily bread, kitchen table, and restless hands, already drying, dying tongues, the tiniest circles ever. That could be one. This could be another. Here comes a copper to bop off your head. Or how can a preview hurt? I really love this. I love the language. I love how the language intersects with the line breaks. But I also love the archival sort of, again, the archival thrust in this collection. And so I kind of want to sort of, in that sort of spirit, I want to read from a chapbook, My Beatrice, which I never read, but again is also invested in thinking about historical thought, or in this case, queer desire. And this chapbook engages with Dante's new life. I was really fascinated by the alternating prose and poetry in Dante's sonnet sequences. I mean, for me, that the prose was really serving as a form of Dante's scholarship into time, into the sonnet, whereas the verses themselves foreground Dante's immediate desire for Beatrice, who doesn't really exist except as this muse. And I wanted to sort of participate in this conversation and thinking about my own queer desires for this muse. Could she speak? Apparently not. But I wanted to. I'm just going to read a little bit because I kind of just want to get to Joel's reading. My Beatrice. In Dante's new life, the sonnet is a time machine entangling history with queer oracles. His yearning is mourning for an impossible object. There is not much difference between loving and grieving. His idea of Beatrice floats the poem, stretches for infinity until compressed at the water. His Beatrice mocks him, cuts him with visionary beatitudes. He punishes her with prose to erase her airy presence. This is how I wrote my sonnet, he says. It is in 4 parts. Dante discards his muse, then cycles back to reclaim her, but my Beatrice hates borders. Her prayers defy plots, deny gratified discernment. My Beatrice slips blessings into fissures, feels flame for another. I migrate to find her. She relocates to avoid me. Apparuit, I am better tudo vestra. The sonnet I wrote was this. My Beatrice is a screen to truth. Sometimes I muse over the quality of grief through love. In spring, my fingers depart for grayer climes, so unused to pointing. I give up my passport, its iconography of strange itineraries, and depart for Mars immediately. Yet at the consulate, an official offers me a business card in case I need assistance while I am abroad. If I have friends who want to work in the US, they can apply for a special visa. I follow cracked windows, not doorways. At the next booth, an alien is crying. They close the window on him. I give in the debt of misreading. I don't need a job. The cost of the application is $250. I explore the sonnet as a scientific instrument to interrogate the condition of catcalls and borders. Dante weaves poems with prose that shape his interpretation. His Beatrice, his mirror, she speaks with his lips inside his organs. All you ever do is go back to ancestral comforts, she says. That's what he said. I want to say, time is an artifact in prose and a process in sonnets. My Beatrice, my astronaut, my unindexed alien, my non-resident, my nonsense drifts as I seek Beatrice in page 10 of my passport. This novel is divided into 2 parts. The first, I give greeting and ask and answer. In the second, it signals what thing has to be answered to. This sonnet is a false prophet whose predictions come true. Speak to me, my Beatrice, speak up, pipe down, go away, come to me, piss off, you're enough. And the sonnet was this. My Beatrice transmits her letters on sunlight. The invasion, she writes, has begun. Humans are colonizing Mars with SAMs and cameras turned to Earth like mirrors. The canals are swelling with salt water and dead rovers. Curiously, the signs are ominous. The beagle has landed. I protest this intrusion of bacteria. I pull pages from my passport to disclaim place and ownership. Exits pursue me everywhere. Even the dirt tracks old spirits. The rocks remember the slow heat of lost Vikings. The fault line of this time is vernacular. Soon increments of data become another thing to glorify. Meanwhile, the thinness of the looking glass offers another shallow ledge to fall on. Afar, my Beatrice brutalizes me with odorous blessings. We ignore each other, we loathe each other, we sit side by side intimately at great distance. We undesire the skin of the other, unsexed satellites with indifference, partisans of malice. We are loud with silence, shrill with our organs. Our detachment is sticky. This is not love, it is inclination. And after all our rage, the sonnet was this. Sometimes I arrive at lines in rocks or vinyl grooves, sustaining angles in history, breaks fingers, not pages. Books are thin sheaves against virtual muses. Sluggish data streams thick with oil. Dust becomes a way of holding time between thumbs and index fingers. I lick pages, not websites. We scroll before sweeping up residues of lint and skin flakes. Excuse me. Confined to garbage, eerie memories of tools I once held. Cassette players can't grow on trees, but we are walking rocks. My Beatrice says the difference between the present and future is shock and awe. I timestamp my body with swollen lungs, hold my breath to prolong this continuous present. Dante is uncertain where his sonnet begins and ends, and as a result, the poems leach into prose. Of those long hours is elastic with unwanting. Time pulled from its singular experience touches uneventful horizons at the Volta. His sonnets break down vary in length as if to control the idea of Beatrice. To arrest the influx of refugees, he creates a looking glass to frame unobtainable love. This is how I wrote my sonnet, he says. It is in two parts. The effect enforces border controls between the prose and the poem, but occasionally his body waxes new corridors. The prose wanes with analysis. Damn it, Beatrice. Remember me when I'm gone away, or else leave off, take coherence with you and send me a farewell letter. I'm sticking to my poems. And the sonnet was this. On Mars, like Earth, a shadow is never wet. Objects are thick, with their grammar is often thicket. Words, however, no longer suffice. At night, I sleep close to my Beatrice, since I prefer schisms to failure, although neither imply negation. In dreams, she implants false memories of Kairos. Too soon I forget the entanglements of history. I remember only phrases such as, no time like the present, and a watch pot never boils. In the morning I ask, when are we? She echoes back, where are the presents? Tense no longer marks the particularities of atoms. Still, time is a continuous present, if I choose to believe in it. How would Dante manage in the age of Me Too? His sonnets catcall, his prose gaslights. I question my judgment. Do I owe him a debt of misreading? Leave her alone, you sick bastard. Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. We all know what happens to women who ignores a man's advances. And the sonnet was this, 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 this. Thank you.
Orchid, that was wonderful. Thank you. What a fantastic evening this has been. Eileen, Norman, Orchid, thank you so much. Those were really wonderful reads. And I'm so glad you're here. We are all, of course, all here because we want to hear from Joel, which means that you're all a captive audience, and I can talk about his book for a second before he comes on. This is an unlikely book, which means it was published by Unlikely Books here in New Orleans. It's called Fata Morgana, as we discussed, and the cover is by Sofia Sanchez, and it's got interior art in here by Joel's daughter, Tristan Chace. It's $15 list price, which, because we do try to keep our books as inexpensive as possible at Unlikely Books. And it is now finally up on bookshop.org at a discounted price. The last time I checked, bookshop.org was listing it as a discounted price. So you might want to get it there. And I think that's enough. Let's go ahead and hear from Joel. Joel, will you be reading from Fata Morgana tonight?
Everybody hear me? Okay. I'm so honored to have everybody here, and especially the readers. Jonathan, I just feel humbled. I did want to acknowledge quickly that this is also the first anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, and a year ago, and everything that's come in the aftermath, and everything that will continue to come, hopefully, to all good ends. Jonathan mentioned Sophia with the cover art, my daughter Tristan with the internal art. Thank you to both of you. Orchid, Eileen, and Norman, thank you so much for your wonderful work and the kind things that you said about mine. I did want to say something. Norman alluded to the structure of the poems in this book. Throughout, what I've tried to do is create a dialogue or a dialectic between the two margins on the page. The left margin being, I suppose you'd say, the main body of work. There are more words there, and most of them mine. And in the right margin, almost exclusively italicized, is a commentary that is triggered by key words or phrases in the left-hand margin. It would be, I suppose, somewhat helpful if you had the book in front of you to follow along, but I'll try to be as clear as I can, and at least pausing when I'm shifting from one margin to the other. I should say that the material on the right-hand margin is taken from several sources, historical, scientific, religious, and other philosophical and other sources. So Fata Morgana, a term derived from Morgan Le Fay, the Arthurian character. The meaning, which I think is probably known to everyone, a kind of optical illusion which occurs on the far horizon over a wide space, often of water, but it can also be land. A thin band over the horizon of, well, can be almost anything, and some of those will be alluded to in the poem. I want to check the time first and then begin with the title poem, which is the second section of 3. Fata Morgana. Corridor in a lake, hallway. The relationship between philosophy and architecture is interrogative and propositional. It is about asking questions concerning the meaning of human habitation. At lake bottom, of water, ceiling, walls, floor, where he moves. That the main task of architecture is the interpretation of a way of life. Forward, with clipboard, pen. On each side, watery doors. They do not last long, but change as the vapors in which they appear from one place to another. Open, hands thrust documents towards him. He signs, advances, signs. That corridor, that life. There's a way up, out, one path. It's implicit admission that all this may be a put on, may not be worth your while. The poignancy of this situation heightens our response. Up from the corridor, but he's so tired. In a raised well, a clear, invisible, and although these colors have left no visible traces of themselves, they nevertheless burn insidiously in the non-color that has replaced them. Well, brought up into light, into a space, as if he speaks from within a column of glass air. As the whole mountain was in a trembling motion, one part collapsed and left behind a great valley. A new peak arose, higher than before, and next to this several others, cone-shaped, but immediately assumed the form of immense rectangular towers, which likewise tumbled in a moment and opened huge valleys. If he is a Banquo, come back to tell them he didn't deserve 20 mortal murders on his head, that he can just barely be in their world anymore, that those he returns to instruct, or in one and the same act, philosophy and architecture enclose man in their shell and structure and disclose open vistas, new horizons, spiritual possibilities of expansion and self-realization. Murder will not stay murdered or instructed, unlike a Banquo who returns but cannot be unmurdered or stay for long in the well, in the light. In this same sea, yet another wonder. When the storm ceases and the air becomes still, at dawn, changing images of animals and men in the air. That well raised up. When it rises, thus the final standard of architectural value for some is the ethical. He spends weeks huffing from one gleaming hallway to the next, never certain, arriving minutes after others had given. Some are quite motionless, some run through the air, some fight among themselves and last even until the sun gains strength, in whose heat all disappear. Up and left, too many corridors, too many corners, too many stairs. We should evaluate buildings according to how well they make possible desired forms of life. Odd room to enter, redolent of abandonment. Even some pleasure is really something else. To name it would be to see it vanish. When occupied, each day, a palimpsest of air hangs, with the last layer fluttering bee. They soon climbed to 2 degrees height, but then began to take on manifold forms. And this display convinced me that they were something quite different from clouds. Hind once the final visitor departs. Then he wanders to a bank of windows. Early winter, late afternoon gray, reflects steeples and lights down in the village back into the space at his back to which he turns, thinking, is design lux residue? Is it time for a new philosophy of rooms that deserve? Philosophy and architecture have the coming task of healing the split of knowledge and feeling, of individual and community. Sorrow, is there nothing in the dark that's not there in the light? Whole side of the old building, whole old side falls. There is a power to fix for eternity the disappearance of that which presents itself, or the power to produce presence itself as idea, outward. He stands directly in the collapse path. What smashes over him? A large window. Standing at the casement, finally saw it. A mountain rising from the sea, about 60 Italian miles away, like a dark blue cloud. I became very uneasy. Pain. His still upright body exactly at its center. All the shards that they aren't illusions or comments, however oblique. They are themselves what is happening. Scatter, do him no harm. The weather frigid. His heavy cap and coat prevent even the tiniest scratch. And I think for the time that I have left, I'd like to read some poems from the third, final and longest section. And so there'll be more pandemic poetry here, Norman. The third section is called Return of Plague Year. Well, the third section is actually called The Plague Year. And the first poem of that section, which I will read now, is Return of Plague Year Narrative. The great rolling came from afar, but was soon upon us, while some were still shaping sentences. Nudged a little more this way. What's the price on that? There'll be a guy over tomorrow to do an inspection. What exactly are you trying to say? Those were ones. An article on a woman who had just started labor but stopped herself and refused to participate until someone, even there, agreed to leave the room. That caused a stir. A slew of old songs began re-echoing, many of them unfortunate. People published lists, pin, recalibration, plain white foundation, reagent, bluing, string, acknowledgement, dirt, rectangle, flower, tubing, bell, greening, stalk, candle, mask, count, yellowing, tongue. Those were ones. Sky high, concussive, wave, houses turned into triangles, stories about people inside. A body in fire, her body in a fire, embodiment of fire. Fire burns her voice, but he doesn't understand. Misunderstanding, a fire consuming like no other. Her eyes in fire, her words silent in fire, her body hardens in fire. The flames of her eyes try to be words, a voice he doesn't comprehend. Gown for night, gown of night, her final gown. Her skin in fire strains up from inside the fabric. Fire gown. He fingers its cotton, then walks upstairs, leaving her with the tiny fire-bellied toad of poisonous properties. That was one, all undone, hardly begun. Fishing. Early April. This one screams. They occupy a part of the soundscape that had previously been assumed, irrelevant to human communication. Smacks lake water with his right hand, drags his already drowned brother with his left. This one, screaming, wants to drive a nail through icy water, to nail it quickly to shore, to bring them instantly there, him and his already dead carpenter stretcheth out his rule, marketh it out with a line, fitteth it with planes, marketh it out with the compass, and maketh it after the figure of a man, according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. Brother, whom he pulls away from the already sunken boat. The catch had rapidly changed in shape and size, from pretty 1-pound trout to great-eyed, loose-mouthed, cod-like monsters piled high in a horrible heap. Toward that nightmare, far, fixed, being in a void that is rumbling deeply, like an airplane engine attached with all its awful weight to the head. Sure. I'll just read a couple more. This poem is called Reading, and the reference is to a Flannery O'Connor story called A Good Man is Hard to Find, which is arguably a candidate for, at the same time, most hilarious and horrifying short story ever written. Reading. Near the end of that story, if the words are not right, what is said is not what is meant. If what is said is not meant, work cannot flourish. If work does not flourish, then customs and arts degenerate. If customs and arts degenerate, then justice is not just. If justice is not just, the people do not know what to do. Hence, the importance that words be right. The fat boy with the silver stallion, and the sun is gonna burn into a cinder before we ever pass this way again. On his red sweatshirt, accompanies them. Injured, nameless mother, nameless infant, nasty little June star. I don't want to hold hands with him. He reminds me of a pig. Into the woods. Moments after, scream, gunshot, shot, shot. Ought it pay a reader to reflect upon the order in which those three murders occur? Shut up, Bobby Lee, the misfit said. It's no real pleasure in life. And I'll finish with this one. I won't read the last poem. You'll have to buy the book to see how this ends. This is called Motions. About to step, fidgeting, as if the ground beneath had suddenly become unbearably hot. Forward, and down. Peripheral, untethered. Its primary concern, advancement. Flash, swirl of white and red, vision tapestry. And above is the Pentecostal wind, presence of the Holy Spirit. White, red, the dead, reckoning. What did they have to do? Turn inside out to make you see? They're well out of it. A snowflake capping each holly, ruler of the white realm, king of the darker half of the year. Bury each prick of blood. Now, forward, down the step. Thank you.
Joel, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, you know that already because I published the book. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful reading. Again, it's $15 and it's currently discounted. The last time I checked, it was discounted on bookshop.org. So please do pick up a copy if you haven't yet. Yeah, I think that's our show. If anybody's got anything to say, you can unmute yourself now. But yeah, thank you so much to Eileen, to Norman, to Orchid. Thank you so much. It was a fantastic reading. Thank you, Joel. Really enjoyed myself.
Thank you, one and all.
Congratulations, Joel.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
It was magnificent. Awesome.
It was awesome. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Congratulations, Joel.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful
Yes,
reading.
congratulations. Everyone was great.
Thank you, Mark.
Looking forward to reading and sort of actually, you know, sitting down to with the book again. I'm looking forward to actually sort of seeing how the object functions as well with the images and everything. I'm very excited.
Thank you. You're very kind, all of you.
Excited.
Good night.
Night.